I won't pretend my hands didn't shake when I realized what they were doing. I won't pretend sleep comes easy, knowing how close I came to disappearing without a headline or apology. But I refuse to apologize for refusing to be erased. When power decides your existence is inconvenient, compliance doesn't save you. Preparation does. I wasn't raised to lower my eyes and hope predators feel merciful. I was raised to document, endure, and outlast. Before we continue, hit like if you believe truth always finds daylight, subscribe for real-life power abuse stories, and comment what time it is where you're watching. Some of you are closer to this than you think. This didn't start with violence. It started with paperwork. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I lived in a quiet mixed-use district governed by a municipal redevelopment council, one of those gray area authorities nobody understands until they destroy you. They handled zoning, business permits, inspections, and community safety compliance. That last part became their favorite weapon. The chairwoman, a sharply dressed woman in her late 40s with a lacquered smile and eyes that never blinked first, announced new urban safety adjustments. Overnight, inspections tripled, fees ballooned, minor infractions turned into shutdown orders, businesses folded, apartments emptied, and every fine funneled through the same shell nonprofit none of us had heard of 6 months earlier. At first, I kept my head down. I ran a small print and records shop. Nothing flashy, just contracts, archives, document recovery, boring enough to be invisible. But boring work teaches you something important: patterns, receipts repeated, invoice numbers skipped, vendor addresses looped back to the same P.O. box, grants approved without votes, emergency powers extended without expiration. Every time I noticed something off, another business disappeared from the block. People stopped talking. That silence was louder than sirens. So I did what quiet professionals do when authority starts lying. I verified. I requested public records. I cross-referenced permits with bank disbursements. I pulled archived council minutes and compared signatures. The story wrote itself in margins and metadata. Money was being washed through revitalization enforcement. Fines became revenue, revenue became bonuses, and dissent became a liability. I didn't tell anyone at first. Fear spreads faster than truth. Instead, I backed everything up: encrypted drives, off-site storage, dead-drop emails scheduled weeks out. Because when corruption senses exposure, it doesn't argue, it erases. The day I finally spoke up was during a council hearing scheduled at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. They thought nobody would show. They were wrong. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I presented timelines, transaction flows, duplicate vendors. I let the projector do the talking. You could hear breathing change in the room, shallow, panicked. The chairwoman laughed. Then she stopped. She called it misinterpretation, claimed I was confused, suggested an audit someday. Then she leaned forward and said something meant only to me. "Be careful," she smiled. "Records get lost all the time." That was the warning. By nightfall, city compliance officers were outside my building. Not uniformed police, worse, administrative enforcement with warrants vague enough to mean anything. They sealed my shop, tagged my residence for inspection, claimed structural safety concerns. I moved my backups that night. At 2:13 a.m., my security camera flagged motion inside the shop, despite the seals. 2 figures, gloves, no body cams. They went straight for the filing cabinets. They weren't there to inspect. They were there to erase me quietly. I called my attorney and left the line open. Then I sat in the dark and listened as people with authority pretended the law was optional. And that's when I understood something that changed everything. This wasn't about fines anymore. It was about whether I would still exist by morning. By the time dawn started thinning the darkness, I already knew they wouldn't stop at intimidation. Power like theirs doesn't retreat when exposed. It escalates. I didn't sleep. I watched timestamps roll forward, monitoring cameras, listening to the buildings settle, replaying the chairwoman's smile in my head. It wasn't confidence, it was certainty, the kind that comes from believing consequences are for other people. At 4:46 a.m., my phone vibrated once. Unknown number, no text, just a missed call. That was the signal. Minutes later, my exterior camera went black. Not disconnected, deliberately killed. Whoever they sent knew exactly where to cut. I didn't panic. Panic wastes time. I moved to the secondary camera feed, routed through an old router I'd kept off-grid on purpose. Two figures appeared in infrared, slipping through the alley entrance like they owned the night. They weren't compliance officers anymore. They carried themselves differently. Shoulders loose, steps quiet, weapons concealed under jackets. This wasn't an inspection. This was cleanup. I activated the automatic file release. Every document, every ledger, every audio recording I'd gathered began uploading to 3 independent journalists, a civil rights watchdog, and a federal archival inbox I'd prepared weeks earlier but hoped never to use. If I vanished, the truth would arrive without me. The door downstairs didn't crash open. It unlocked. That detail mattered more than anything else. Keys meant access, access meant authorization, and authorization meant the rot went deeper than one chairwoman and a fake nonprofit. I stayed still as they entered, voices low but calm. One mentioned my name like it was already past tense. The other asked if backups existed. The reply came fast. Doesn't matter. Orders are to make this permanent. That's when the illusion broke. They weren't there to scare me into silence or retrieve files. They were there to ensure I never testified, never corrected the narrative, never showed up in a courtroom with timestamps and receipts. I let them pass my room. The decoy worked. The silhouette under the blanket bought me seconds, precious, fragile seconds. When the first shot ripped through the mattress, it wasn't fear I felt, it was clarity. Everything narrowed to angles, timing, breath control. Training I never wanted to use surfaced anyway. The second shot came faster, sloppy. That's when they realized the bed was wrong. I moved. The confrontation was fast, brutal, and final. Not cinematic, not heroic, just survival colliding with arrogance. When it was over, both men were down, alive, restrained, and bleeding badly enough to reconsider their loyalty. I called emergency services again, calmly, clearly, and stayed on the line until sirens cut through the street. When uniformed officers arrived, real ones, the story fractured immediately. Nothing matched the paperwork, nothing matched the warrants, nothing matched the chain of command the attackers tried to claim. They broke within an hour, not out of guilt, out of fear. They named names, provided call logs, payment transfers, voice messages where the chairwoman's tone shifted from bureaucratic to personal. She didn't ask them to kill me outright. She just said it would be better for everyone if I couldn't speak anymore. That phrasing cost her everything. By noon, state investigators arrived. By evening, federal agents followed. The Redevelopment Council offices were sealed before sunset. Accounts frozen, homes searched, phones seized. The nonprofit dissolved into evidence cags and court filings. News vans replaced patrol vehicles. Neighbors who wouldn't meet my eyes weeks ago suddenly remembered conversations, threats, unexplained fines. Silence collapsed under subpoena. Fear changed sides. The chairwoman tried to resign. They didn't let her. Charges stacked faster than press releases could keep up. Conspiracy, fraud, civil rights violations, obstruction, attempted murder under color of authority. The badge she hid behind became the very thing that buried her. My shop reopened 3 months later under a different name. I didn't need attention. I needed distance. Some nights are still loud. Some memories don't fade cleanly. But every document I saved is now public record. Every abuse is traceable. Every lie has a timestamp. Power hates witnesses. That's the truth they never account for. If this story kept you watching, take a second to like the video, subscribe for more real-world accountability stories, and comment whether you think exposure is a worse punishment than prison. Your perspective matters more than you realize. I didn't win. I survived. And sometimes, that's the most dangerous outcome of all.